Welcome to one edition of P4PETalks. So P4PETalks teams ensures personal development and business. Management solutions, training programs, business solutions, career solutions, and HR solutions. My name is Urat Hamilari Alade, and I'll be your host this afternoon. As we are well aware, our webinar topic for today is integrated talent management and succession planning framework. And facilitator is already on ground. Before we start, there are some session protocols I would like us to please pay adherence to. Please kindly mute your audio and turn off your video. You may, however, speak on the facilitator's invitation. Questions, comments, and concerns should please be typed in the comment section, in the message section. All your comments, your questions, and your concerns should please be typed in. Also, please do not forget to kindly mute your audio and turn off your video. You may, however, speak on the facilitator's invitation. Our speaker for today is Mr. Joseph Omodua. Joseph Omodua is a strategic HR professional with specialty in talent acquisition and talent development. Interestingly, he is also a published author of I Know That Baba, a poetry book that has sold over 200 copies on Amazon. He is also international chess master with over 4 gold medalists, and he enjoys brainstorming. So we look forward to an exciting class with him. Thank you. Mr. Joseph, you can take over.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Looks good to be here in the midst of professionals. We'll be discussing contemporary issues surrounding HR and how we can actually come together to brainstorm and come about the best practices when it comes to integrated talent business management. I'd like to welcome you all to this section, and I'm glad to be presenting this topic because it has been a challenging topic and a maturing stage of HR. Just quickly before we dive deep into the topic of our webinar, I'd like to congratulate each and every one of you for being in this session, and I hope at the end of the session you have questions. So again, the topic of our webinar is integrated talent management and succession planning. This is the maturing stage of plan, and it's very, very vital and important for anyone who wishes to leave the administrative path of HR to grow to the zenith of their career, to understand the framework and all that needs to be known as far as strategic HRM is all about. Our core objectives for today is we want to see how HR play a critical role in identifying, developing, and protecting core organizational capabilities and support individual competences that enhance or establish competitive advantage. We also want to see why identifying and delivering competencies required individuals to achieve competitive advantage supports the bottom line. At the end of this webinar, we would have seen when is it the right time to pursue talent strategies that support entering or surviving in a geographic market. We also want to see if outsourcing to external vendors some of the traditional HR functions, how does it give you a competitive advantage? Is it very imperative to a strategic human resource personnel? Is it very important to drive the bottom line? Or it's an unnecessary part in human resource or human capital management? We also want to see what and how benefit and compensation play significant roles in making challenging decisions, including in designing systems to attract and retain talent while minimizing unnecessary costs. And lastly, we would see how shifting HR productivity by shifting to consultative advising role is vital to be able to achieve business objectives. Well, one important thing I would like to remark is that we are all here today because we want to move ahead. We want to get to the zenith of our career. And as a matter of fact, there are actually topics surrounding human capital management or human resource management that it is not adding to the value of the organization in terms of the revenue. However, what are the things you need to do as an human resource professional to be able to cut away from that confines, for you to be able to cut away from that zone, that comfort zone, and outstretch yourself to the strategic part of human capital management? Before we dive deep into the topic, let us see the maturity scale of human resource management. At first, human resources started as an administrative role, a back office function, a personnel department where you do payrolls, regulations, P&Ps, and all that. Eventually, at the maturing stage, and at that particular stage, you are complying to regulations, you're complying to P&Ps, you're complying to stipulated and stated policies. Eventually, HR migrated and actually transpired to the strategic HR, where we now invented recruitment, learning and development, organizational designs, total rewards, serving center, and HR at this point became a center of excellence, actually. At that point, that is where you begin to see human resource business partner. Here, human resources does not just comply, they now serve. It became a service center. It became a center of excellence to talent. And then the next stage is the integrated talent management, and that will be the locus of our discussion today. At this stage, you are empowered to make critical decisions that has to define the managerial system and how the organization should grow, how to take the organization from where they are to the desired place. At that point, you are not just managing, you are also looking at the succession planning, you are also leading, you are not bossing. We need to understand that. You're not bossing, you are leading, you're coaching, you're mentoring. And you can do all this to make it very easy by integrating the system and incorporating them one each into the other. The last stage is the business-driven HR. To become a business-driven HR, you have to first of all differentiate yourself and differentiate HR as a talent segment. A lot of people have been contemplating about certain terms that has to do with human resources, human capital, and talent. In organizations, you see some people say it's people and culture. Some people define it as talent management. Some people call it, there are different terms, and these terms defines the culture and the values of those organizations. We will get into that during the course of the session. So the last stage of HR, which is the maturity stage, for me, I still believe that HR is still in the maturity stage. Why? Because the future of HR is also dependent on artificial intelligence, software tools, automated services, and all that. So before we dive deep again into the topic, what is actually an organization? It is very important for us to understand what organization means and how organization come to affect or affect the whole nation and the world. I know some of you are familiar with these techniques, which is the PESTEL and the SWOT analysis. An organization is any existing or potential body that aims to add value to the society. But what are the things that affect those values? Politics, the political. For example, look at the new policy that comes to affect the cryptocurrency market. So supposing your market is strategically built on cryptocurrency, then there is a challenge. So political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal. This is very vital for you as an HR to understand and to also just not understand, to follow the trend analysis of all these key functions. You need to know what is trending when it comes to politics, when it comes to economics, when it comes to social, when it comes to technological. You want to understand the softwares that are in use now. You want to understand the environment. Some policies that you might want to implement in your own organization might not fit your culture. For example, look at remote workers. Okay, a lot of organizations are beginning to now imbibe this or influence the bottom line by bringing in remote workers into the organization. It might not work for you. But anyways, we will get to that stage and we'll dissect how and when you need to understand all these tools. These are external factors that actually affect your organization. If you want to move from the administrative role to the strategic part of the human resources, you need to understand this key. This is very, very strategic, and I think you need to build a strategy as against these factors. Another factor or another area that we want to look at is the internal business process of human resources of the organization, which has to do with human resources, the sales and marketing, the finance, the IT, the operations, and the research and development. Some people like to call it learning and development, but I prefer to call it research and development, because when you say research, one way or the other, you are actually integrated to the marketing department. You are researching and you are giving them feedbacks. So researching is not just about developing the talent, it's also about giving suggestion, giving strategic ideas on how to improve the business. To emphasize on something called Porter's 5. I'm sure some of us are familiar with that, actually. Porter's 5 forces, which is very important. When you are developing your strategy, or when you are developing your business strategy, Porter's said there are 5 key things that are important to developing your organizational strategy. 1, the bargaining power of your buyers, the bargaining power of your suppliers, the threats of the new entrants. Who are the ones entering into your own industry? You have to analyze, you have to do a survey, you have to do a research on this. What is the bargaining power of your buyers? How powerful are your buyers? What is the strength? What is the database of people that are buying or subscribing to your product? What is the bargaining power of your supplier? What are the alternatives you have? How many channels do you have to buy things into your organization? I mean, naturally, you don't want to get involved in this as an administrative HR, but by the time you want to get to the strategic HR, a business HR, you want to analyze all those things. You want to go to the sales department and say, guys, what is your KPI for this month? How can I assist you with your KPI, being an HR? Who are your suppliers? Who are you buying from? Do we have alternatives? How many people is buying from us also? Who are our threats? Who are the new entrants? Who are the ones coming to the organization? You want to understand this. You want to understand the opportunities you also have. You want to understand, in economics, there's something called alternative for gone. You want to understand each and every part of these tools to be able to develop your strategy. And as a matter of fact, every organization needs to develop a strategy. I would like to ask the audience, what is more important in the organization? Is it the vision or the strategy? Which comes first? I'd like you to come up with your answers and let's deliberate over this. Is it the vision that is more important or comes first, or the strategy? We have about 2 minutes to discuss this. Is it the vision or the strategy? Does anyone have some questions or some answers to this? Wonderful. Taiwo Adeoye, thank you for your comment. The visions comes first, but they are both very, very true. Very, very true. Very, very true. Tolani Aborishade said, the vision comes first. Well, true as well. Taiwo Adeoye again said, as the strategy is based on the vision. Very true. Now, thank you all for your comments. I want to ask you, in your organization, do you even know your vision? Being an HR, can you, if I spot you online now, can you recite your vision as an HR personnel? Do you know your mission statement? Do you know your vision statement? Can you recite it right now as we are? If we start reciting our visions, can you say as an HR, being the leader of the organization, driving the talent of the organization, you can yourself mention or recite the vision of your firm? These are very, very key things to become a strategic HR. These are not jokes. Anyways, we will come to that during the course of our session. Okay. So, strategic talent management. We want to understand what strategic talent management entails or what it's all about. But before we can do that, we need to understand what is strategy. Without wasting much time over defining what is strategy, some of the things we've discussed when it comes to the Porter's 5 forces, when it comes to the SWOT analysis, the environmental scanning, the PESTEL techniques, you are actually strategizing, you're actually planning. And that's the first stage in business audience targeting. The second thing we want to understand is what is actually talent? Well, I mean, this sounds like a normal thing that we see every day, talent. And people begin to say talent management. What is talent? Why don't you just say people's management? What differentiates talent from people? And what differentiates people from human resources or humans? What is this thing about talent? Then thirdly, we want to see what is management, what are the best management approach that you can use in your firm right now to elevate business and to influence the engagement level of your people. And then, what is strategic planning? And the last thing is talent management. If you look at this picture, there is a boss and there is a leader. The boss here is pointing to the direction where they have to go to. If you look at the picture very vividly, you see that, well, they are aligned. I mean, they are going towards that direction, but they don't have that enthusiasm. There's a difference here. There's this passion there. They can't see clearly. They just want to go there. But look at this. The leader is actually in the front row, and he's not just pointing. He's pointing and at the same time channeling them towards that direction. This is a key. And how can you do that? You start by you understanding your vision. You understand the vision of your organization. You understand the mission statement of your organization. This is very key. So let's start by dissecting these definitions. Number one, strategy is defined as any plan of action designed to achieve a long-term or overall aim. It defines organizational goals. It defines the methods to achieve those goals, and then it distributes assets and the resources. In other words, in your organization or when you want to set up an organization, after your vision statement is actually articulated, you want to come up with a strategy. There is a thin line between strategy and vision. Both of them are long-term goals. However, the vision statement is actually the place where the organization would like to be, while the strategy is a roadmap of how they can get there. And that's why we want to see what a strategic plan means. A strategic plan is a roadmap to lead an organization from where it is now to where it would like to be. As much as we are talking about vision, as much as we are talking about strategy, organizations have their own vision and their strategy. Your HR department also needs to have its own vision for the talent. What is it? What is your vision for the talent? What is your mission for the talent? Where there is no vision, the people perish. Strategy formation. These are set of processes involved in creating or determining the organization's strategies. Thirdly, strategy implementation. These are the methods by which the strategy are operationalized or executed. And that is when you want to start looking at the manpower planning, who is to report to who, what are the roles we need, who should execute this, who should execute that, who should head this department, who are they to be reporting to? Because at this point, you want to make it operational. You want to execute those plans. So in other words, whatever you are performing now as HR personnel, if you don't know the strategy that the organization had at first, you are not going to be able to recruit perfectly because you don't even know the behaviors that drives the strategy. You don't know those kind of behaviors that will suit into the culture of that strategy. So we want to go back and say, what is the vision of this organization? Where do we want to go to? What are the cultures that have been on ground? What kind of people should define how to get to that expected outcome? Before you can now develop this strategy or understand this strategy, there are two things that are very key. Number one is the strategic positioning. What actions can we take to differ from competitors? This is the number one thing. Take, for example, HP has been in the market for a long time. We have Dell. We have series of computer companies who are providing services to the world. And Apple says we want to differ ourselves by having just two colors. And two, our target audience is the housewives. We will only sell to the housewives and we only have two colors. At the highest price, at the highest quality, or at the best quality. They have differentiated themselves from the market. They don't even care whether the service is going to be more expensive or not, but because they have a USP, universal selling point, which is to say, we want to differentiate ourselves from Dell or whoever has been in that market for ages. We want to come and mop up the market, and our key strength is to differentiate ourselves from the competitor. That is strategy. Imagine that you are selling to the housewives. That means you have sold to the whole world. And then that will now determine how you should recruit, how you should hire, how you should advertise roles, who should come in, who should go out. This is very, very key before you get to talent acquisition. You have to first of all understand these roles. Two, the operational effectiveness. Is my organization performing similar activities better than my competitors? Yahoo has been into existence for a long time. But as a matter of fact, we have seen Outlook, we have seen Gmail, we have seen a lot of other service providers overrun them. Why? Because of strategy. BlackBerry came into existence and they mopped up the whole market. The whole world wanted BlackBerry. And Apple came and it took all over. Why? Because they cannot sustain their competitive advantage. At that point in time, they gained the momentum, they gained the advantage, but they can't sustain it. And why? Because of the people. Very simple. And so before you can now define the strategic positioning and the operational effectiveness, these two are dependent on your vision, your mission, your values, your SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And who are your threats? You can use Porter's 5 forces to define that. Who are the new entrants, your buying power, your purchasing power, and all that. Then you have to identify 6 focus areas. For example, in my organization, there are 6 key areas that we have identified as selling points and as an area to give the most values, which is not even provided by other organizations. You as an HR should come up with that, not the CEO. It's very, very funny today as you continue to see that You see general managers not coming from the HR department. Why? Because they're not strategic. We are in the maturing stage of the HR. You have to begin to play these strategic roles before they can invite you for such meetings, before they can see you as a business leader, before the CFO can say something and you can say, no, CFO, I don't think this will work. How will you understand it when you don't even understand who is buying from your organization? You don't even understand who are your suppliers. You don't even understand who are the alternative suppliers. We used to say, we are supplying this product for 5 naira for this organization, or we are actually buying from this organization for 5 naira. We have an organization that can give us for 2 naira. Why don't we go for them at the same quality? At that point in time, you're not just sitting in the office and typewriting like a receptionist. You're already a business partner. And this is very essential to the growth of every organization. You then need to develop your goals and action plans. First of all, there is something called organizational goals. And then HR should now have its own goal. This is different from KPI. Your organizational goal is something that has to do with a long plan and is actually connected to the vision, the mission, and something I would like to call the values. When you talk about the values, you're beginning to talk about the culture of the organization. And culture is the key thing to be able to drive engagement. When you're talking about the culture, the mission statement determines the culture of that organization. For example, if Google says our mission is to be able to provide answers to any questions of the people in the world, then the kind of people they have to start actually recruiting has to go towards IT, right? Because that's their culture. Chinese, for example, have a culture. Their culture is that if there's having a tea, the cup must not go empty. It's a taboo for them. If a Chinese man wants to give you a letter, he doesn't give you with a right hand. If you give a Chinese man a letter or a note with one hand, it's already a taboo. You have to give it with two hands and one head bow. These are cultures. You now need to define what is the culture of my own organization. This culture means what are the behaviors that we want in this organization? And that behavior will now go to your P&P, your policies and your procedures. And those are the things you need during onboarding, that in our organization, this is a taboo. In our organization, this is a taboo. So when you are now shortlisting or when you are now recruiting, you have it in mind that it's not just the knowledge and skills and abilities that you want. You also need knowledge, skills, and attitude. So a lot of people want to say KSA, and all that. So people say, no, my hair is not abilities, my hair is attitude. Why in the executive level, they say it's KSE, knowledge, skills, and experience, because they don't need any to gamble. Let's move forward. Let's look at the mission strategies of the most important organizations in the world. And let us now see how that links to their culture and how their culture continues to give them that sustainable advantage over any other organization that does the same thing. The mission strategy of Microsoft says, we want to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. They are people driven, every person. And if you look at Microsoft today, they have been able to achieve that because they have a goal and they have a culture, they have a mission and a vision. Today, they have been able to even outpass their mission because today, Microsoft is on every computer. When they set this target, they have not achieved this, but they keyed into that doctrine, or I will call it indoctrination. Indoctrination is when you imbibe people, when you baptize people and bring them into what you do, and you want them to act according to those stated or stipulated attributes. 2, Google said, our mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Today, they have been able to achieve that. Why? Because of the people. So when they are recruiting people, they are recruiting people who have information, people who can organize, people who are very expert or specialists in organizing information. So they don't just go and recruit from the market anyhow. They select. They know what they want and they select. They know what they are going for and they select, because the people that will come into the organization will now determine whether they can get to where they are going to. Third, let's see Zara. Zara said, we want to give customers what they want and get it to them faster than anyone else. In other words, they're looking at speed now. Speed is their own concern. So if you are coming into Zara, you must be able to work at a fast pace. And that will now determine how or who should come into Zara. If you cannot work in a fast pace, they don't need you. They don't really care about your knowledge or your skills. They also want to see that you can work at a fast pace. You are flexible. You can adapt to any situation. Let us look at Facebook, which is the last one that we'll be looking at today as a case study. Facebook says we want to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. And they have achieved that today. But Twitter is Twitter actually has become a force to reckon with as well. What am I saying? Why does your organization exist? You as an HR really need to understand this before you can even go to say you want to get to have corrective actions, or what we call CAPA in human resources, corrective actions and preventive actions, or design the planning and organogram and all those. Why does your organization exist? Before you can become a strategic HR, you have to answer these questions. Let us move on to the next thing. The next part now is, what is talent management? Let's go straight to the point. What is talent management? Someone has decided to define talent management as the strategic deployment of human resources to help reach business goals. We have defined all these things previously. We have talked about strategy, how to develop strategy, how to implement it, and how to operationalize it. We have defined that. We have discussed business goals. We have talked about organizational goals. We have not spoken about individual goals. We'll get to that shortly. Specifically by hiring, developing, and retaining the best employees in the market for a specific industry. Retaining today has been the major challenge for every human resource in organization. Everyone here, as we speak, knows that retaining talent is key for organization. There's a difference between ability and capability. What is ability and what is capability? We will get into that later, because these two terms define what talent is. Another person has decided to define talent management as the methodically organized strategic process of getting the right talent, not candidates, of getting the right talent on board and helping them to grow their optimal capabilities. We will look at what capabilities means later, keeping organizational objectives in mind. In short, this is the framework of talent management. First, talent acquisition. Then two, talent deployment. Then thirdly, talent development and retention. Talent acquisition is different from recruitment. These are two different terms. When you're talking about recruitment has to do with hiring. But talent acquisition has to do with planning. For example, if you are planning towards the best practice for your recruitment, you might say, what is our timing process? What is the quality of hire that we want? What is our time to fill? What is the ratio of our between the interview and the hire? For example, an organization will say our ratio between I to H is 1 to 7. Some organizations will say it is 1 to 6. Experts says the best bet is to say ratio 1 to 3, which is not to say you have invited 3 candidates and you have been able to 3x, you have been able to identify the right candidates. You don't need to interview 20 people before you hire the right candidates. This is the culture of some organization. What does that mean? It means the hiring stage must be very strong. Hiring stage in terms of shortlisting candidates. They don't just shortlist. They shortlist 3 candidates because they are too certain that their shortlisting strength is very strong. And that's why your strength, your weakness, your opportunities and your threats come in. How are you shortlisting? Some organization says it is ratio 1 to 7. Okay, fine. We don't want to gamble too much. We want to invite 7 people for the interview and we want to have the right candidates. All these things help organizations develop their planning stage. Onboarding. How do we want to onboard the people? What is our organizational culture? Do we have values? What are our values? As they are coming into the organization, you want to tell them that these are our values. I know of a firm in Emirates. It's called Mandarin. They have 11 pillars. As you are coming in from outside, they even call it in onboarding indoctrination. They take you through stages in their recruitment process. One, what are our values? What are our 11 pillars? And you must be able to recite it. If you are working on the parade and this general manager comes to you during operational hour, the GM can just ask you, what's our vision? He can just ask you anytime. So before you go to work in the morning, you want to go back to your vision and say, please, so I don't want to be embarrassed by the general manager today. What is our vision? Because there is a point you lose for every time you actually miss those things. There's a book called Black Book. If you cannot recite the 11 pillars, you cannot recite the vision, then you are not aligned with us. You are doing something else differently. And all these things is what you have to consider when you are developing your planning for talent acquisition in terms of recruitment, in terms of onboarding, in terms of shortlisting and all that. This defines how you should hire or who you should hire or what qualities or attributes you need. Aside for job specifications, which are the things you need, also need someone with experience who can do handle those tasks. You also want to look at the culture, because that is the problem of retention. You hire the person with the experience, but they don't stay because they are not aligned to the culture. Then how do you deploy them? How do you onboard them? How do you actually let them see the vision of the organization? Do you make it big or you make it small? The first impression that any candidate or talent can have is during their onboarding. So I can assure you scientifically that a candidate have at least 70% of their decision whether to stay for 6 months or 1 year during their onboarding process. So how do you onboard your friend? Do you just do it shabbily and do you just do it as you like because you don't really care? Or do you have a strategy in place, like a process? Number one, you talk about the policies and procedures. Number two, you talk about value. Laying an emphasis on those things and actually showing them why it affects their performance and how they can be penalized. And that is where you begin to come with corrective actions. Corrective actions and actions you take before the person had actually done the harm. You're already correcting them and say, don't do this, don't do this, do this. Preventive actions are the actions that the person had already done it and you can't do anything about it. That is when you begin to think of what should we do? What should be the penalty for this? But you don't want to be reverse. You don't want to be passive. You want to be a proactive HR. So you begin to develop plan towards this onboarding system. Thirdly, is talent development. We will look into all this as the framework of talent management, and we will actually go comprehensively as we go during the course of this webinar. Okay. Now, before you can be an effective and strategic talent management or manager, there are 4 things that you have to put into consideration. One, you have to be a strategic partner. All these things we've been discussing, all the things we've been discussing since are the things that can actually make you to become a strategic partner. Imagine that you want to implement all these things that we have discussed and you are still attached to payroll. How can you have the time to even think like that? You can't have the time. Imagine that you want to perform all these things and you are still attached to some administrative function. You can't think, you are stuck. That's why you can't actually grow in your career. That's why you are stuck, because you keep doing the normal things, the mainstreams, the common thing every day, the same way other people do it in the organization. Before you can break in from that chain, you have to begin to think of how can I adjust HR strategies to be able to respond to changing needs. There is pandemic now. You want to go back and review your policy and come up with a new policy for remote workers. You are already a strategic partner. You are beginning to think that we need to adjust, we need to review our policies to be able to meet the needs of the market. You are not just sitting down and doing payroll or just monitoring, what is it called, calendars, or what is it called, daily, calendars of all such. Timetable, people coming to work, clocking in and clocking out. That is too passive for you. You are not strategic. Before you can become a strategic HR, you want to detach yourself from these things and actually think of better things that can influence the bottom line of the organization. 2, you want to be an operations manager. To become an operations manager, it means you are ensuring that the HR programs are actually aligned with the culture. The people can see, the candidates, the talent can see whether you are actually aligned to the culture or not. If you are not aligned to the culture and you want the candidate to be aligned, how come? That can happen, actually. You need to actually align your HR strategies, your HR P&P, your KPI. Everything has to be directed or geared towards the culture of the organization. Remember that we said the HR team themselves need to have a vision and a mission. So the third stage is you want to become an emergency responder. And this, it means that when something happens, people see you as a leader to come to consult. They know you have outside of the box thinking ideas. You can actually mediate for them. You can advise them. In terms of business, if the salesperson says, I don't know what the problem is with my department. We are actually not selling. We have problems. Then you can say, guys, let us do a TNA and a TNI for your team. What are the identification? What are the training needs and education of your team? Do they need to do some more trainings? Do we need to put them on some other trainings that can help them to sell more? Do we need to actually bring in consultants to come and train them on how to do that? Do we need to train them on how to negotiate? You are a negotiator at this point in time. And that is why when the CFO is saying, no, we cannot pay this amount for this candidate, or we cannot pay this amount for this staff, you are a negotiator. The CFO respects you because you are actually a strategic person. You can say, no, we need to pay this for this role because this role is this. So you are negotiating. Before you can say you want to become an effective talent manager, you have to be an emergency responder. The last one, and something that has become common in our generation, is to become an employee engagement expert. This is very key. Why? Nobody wants to stay in an organization for too long, especially if they're experts. Nobody wants to stay in a role without getting benefits, without getting anything. So what do? You now want to link their performance to strategies, to benefits. You let them see that it is like a car that is driving, you are going to Ibadan, you are going to Oyo, and you let them understand that you are on this ship, you are on this car, and you are driving with us. What do I mean? I mean to say, at this particular stage, you are like this, the car here, and everyone in the organization is inside the car, and you are driving towards this. So you are letting them to understand that as far the more kilometers we actually acquire, the more you are moving forward with us too, as far as you are selling this car. So you want to see how many employees are actually engaged, how many employees are facing this side, while you people are facing this side. Actually, some people can face this side. You can face the other side and say, I beg, I don't care. Let me just be looking at what, even when you are driving, sometimes your kids want to look back and see the cars behind them. This is natural. However, it is also key to make sure that everyone is facing one direction. And how can you do that? Through benefits, through linking their performance to strategies. We actually come to that during the course of this session. However, I have actually defined high-performing working system. You want to define an HPWS for your organization. How can we attain a high-performing working system? One, link every operational activities to the strategies. The departments, remember, we have their own strategy. A sales director will definitely have his own strategy of acquiring sales. A marketing director has his own market. For example, he wants to go to the planes and drop their names in the magazines. He wants to ensure that their names is in front of the magazines in the plane, so that when the rich men comes on board, they see the name of their company. He wants to go to media. So every department, which we have mentioned earlier on IT, everyone has their own KPI and they have their own strategy to achieve that. So how do you now not make it that everyone is actually dispersed? How do you now align them in the midst of this individual unit strategy to make it one? You have to drive them back to the vision. You have to drive them back to the mission. And that is why you need to link their performances to the initial strategy in the organization. And that strategy defines the culture. And before you can design that, you want to come to say our workflow. How should we workflow? What are the HRM practices? What tools do we need to be able to achieve this? Do you need some auditing tools? Do you need ATS? Do you need training? Do you need this? Do you need POS? Do you need all that? Once you define that, you are already involved in the business. The CEO can say, okay, I'm traveling to UK and I can assure that this HR can actually perform the function. During the pandemic, a friend of mine who happens to be an Indian, took one of our charter programs, HR charter programs, alongside with me. When pandemic came, they fired their HR, the 3 HRs. And you know what the CEO said? The CEO said, Chintan, I understand that you are in finance, but I also know that you have done a training in HR and you are now shattered. I don't think we need any HR for now because there is no business. So you will be doing the HR and the finance at the same time. That is the key. Training. That is the key. He is actually aligned to that organization. He is actually aligned to the growth of that organization because his organization is actually their mission is people's empowerment, and he has already empowered himself. So the opportunity came, and he just picked him. This is very, very key. So you have to understand how to see that the people actually are aligned to the strategy. Who is aligning to the strategy? Who is aligning to the culture? Who is not? You have to separate the sheep from the lion. That's separate the chaff from the rice itself, or the seed itself. 2. Then the next stage is, since you have defined that, the implementation process. How should we implement it? Know fully well that some people will not like that strategy. Some people will not even like changes. They won't like to see that they have been doing it. In fact, during your onboarding, you will see a lot of staff saying that this is how we used to do it in my previous firm. But how do you now implement it? How do you now make them to align? We'll come to that in the course of the session. The third one is the outcomes. What are the outcomes that we want to see in our employee? And that has to do with employee branding. You begin to brand them at their awards, their trainings, you brand them on your digital platforms to make them feel rewarded, to make them feel happy, to make them feel recognized. That's another forms of high involvement. You are involving them into the business. There's one technique or there's one strategy that we use in human capital management, which is to say, you bring it, it's called job rotation. There's always a job rotation week where the CFO is working in housekeeping, the housekeeping is working in CFO, the general manager is working in the reception is working in the general manager for a day. The hotel, or depending on your industry, you come up with this strategy to be able to give them high involvement. Imagine that the guy who is working in the security or the guy cleaning plates in the kitchen is working as a supervisor for a day. It feels like I'm part of this. It gives him a chance. Maybe I'm part of this organization. Meanwhile, we are not thinking as human resources to say, I just hire this person and hire and fire. You are employing the triple T rules, which say you train them, you transfer them before you terminate them. You are involving them in the organizational process such that they feel like it's their own company. And that is actually the principle of diversity and inclusion. You are included in the business. For a day, the cleaner is a supervisor. For a day, the cleaner is a manager. Then it makes them feel that I think that these people have plans for me. So when another organization is calling them, they still feel that no, I still have a dream with this firm. Even when they are throwing baits with them with money, they say that no, I'm still driving a car with this firm and we are still going together. Another way which you can do that is during your onboarding. You scatter them, you place them on each other, let them engage themselves. We will look at engagement and employee engagement within the course of the session, and we'll actually dive deep more into that. One of the tools that you can use to be able to achieve your organizational goals is you can actually have training sessions. And in these training sessions, you make sure that the C-level are also part of the training. Take, for example, you want to take customer service, and the receptionist is there, and the general manager is also part of the training. There's this feeling of inclusiveness, involvement. It feels like, wow, the general manager is actually coming to take the customer service training. Can you imagine that? And when he goes home, he tells his friends, I imagine today, I can't imagine that the general manager is taking a customer service training. He feels like they are equal. And that is what we call egalitarianism. We will come to that during the course of the training or of the session. But there is something I would like to ask. There's something that is very, very key that we need to understand. When developing your process, when developing your platform, what do you look at? Do you have the end in your mind, or you have the beginning? What I mean to say is the beginning to say we are strictly following this rule, or the end, which is to say we want to change, we want to retarget. In your firms, do you allow flexible working system? Do you allow people to explore themselves? Do you allow them to showcase their talents? Because that's why you say talent. And we'll look at what talent means and what abilities means and what capabilities means during the course of the webinar. So far, do we have any questions regarding these treated topics or treated podiums? Okay. All right, we move ahead. Okay, so here we are. Let us see how you can measure yourself if you're already becoming a strategic business partner or a talent manager. One, is the CEO calling you to develop plan to support overhacking plan, which is to say you are already doing gap analysis. Where are the gaps in the HR? Where are the gaps in sales? Where are the gaps in marketing? Where are the gaps in IT? What are the problems they are having? Are they calling you to do that by any chance? Is it key to understand that we have some problems in the IT? Do we need to know if they're not balancing accounts very well in the accounting section? Are there gaps? Is the CEO telling you to now develop new plans or trainings to be able to overlap or support these overarching plans? Is the CEO already calling you to lead strategic meeting in the organization, where naturally the CFO is the one leading, or the chief marketing officer is the one leading? When they begin to invite you to those kind of meetings and sessions, you know by yourself that I am already becoming a strategic partner in this firm, and not just the mainstream administrative HR that is sitting down and monitoring payrolls. This is very, very important. Another thing you want to understand is, are they beginning to call you to find professionals that can lead strategic planning sections? If they are not calling you, then that means they don't even see you as a business partner. They are seeing you like a receptionist. Sorry to say that. They are seeing you like an administrative person that is just handling menial things that doesn't really affect the business. And you are also a resources, you are also a human resources to the CEO at the same time. You are like also a resources, you are not a business partner at that point in time. So you can measure yourself, ask yourself this question: have they ever called me in an organization to come and attend a strategic meeting, or for me to come and be the one to plan, or for me to be the one to design planning for marketing, for example? Has it ever happened? Until you begin to get to that stage, then there's still a need for you to improve on your productivity and your effectiveness. Don't forget the five forces. Who are our buyers? Who are our suppliers? Who are the new threats? Who are the entrants? And all that. When you begin to analyze those things, there's going to be a feel, the difference feel. At first, I can assure you free of charge that the head of sales will tell you that what is your own business with this? Because they're not used to that. Why are you asking us this kind of question? Is it your KPI? Is it your this? Is it your that? Because they are used to you being administrative. They're not used to you being strategic. When you begin to ask director of marketing to say, what's the marketing plan? Because you want to align it with the HR plan. Then begin to ask you that what kind of nonsensical question are you asking? But at that point in time, you're already playing a strategic role. By the time you now align it and you now come in the meeting where the C-levels are, you begin to present your case, which is a business case, they begin to respect you that this guy is not just someone we can make to sit down and be doing payroll. This lady or this woman is not someone that just be sitting down and be doing timetable or something. We need to involve this person in the business because he's the commercial strategist of the organization. In multinational firm, there's something called commercial strategy. There's a department called commercial strategy. And the commercial strategist actually heads the director of marketing. The commercial strategist is actually the machine, the brain box of the organization. You want to be at that level and not the level of saying, go and do payroll, go and do something. What next? Employee engagement. Now, Jack Welch said something. If you pick the right people and give them the opportunity to spread their wings and put compensation as a carrier behind it, you almost don't have to manage them. Now, the quick thing is that whilst you're beginning to involve yourself into the business process, you are gradually detaching yourself from the administrative things, and you are more focused on the talent now, because you want to use the talent to achieve the organizational goal at the end of the year, or the annual goal, or the monthly goals. You are beginning to detach yourself from saying, oh, who is doing payroll, who is this? You are beginning to get engaged. And so at that point in time, you are more focused on the talent of the organization. You are more focused on the employees. You want to see which employee is helping this organization to go forward, or which employee is actually driving the organization backward. Jack Welch had actually mentioned this because for him, he believes in innovation. And that is why he says, give them the opportunity to spread their wings, get out of their way, and let them try. Let them implement things. As far as those things is not detrimental to any policy and procedure or to the image of the organization, as far as those things doesn't affect the KPI or doesn't affect the brand identity, let them try. Just give them money behind it. Put small compensation. We know for sure that compensation comes in two ways, or rewards comes in two ways. We have monetary rewards and we have non-monetary rewards. Under monetary rewards is we have increments, you have all those bonuses and all that. But non-monetary rewards, actually, according to Gallup survey, non-monetary reward is even more important than monetary reward sometimes. Take for example, I used to work in a firm where we have our own currency. Our IT have designed a paper for us, a currency. It looks like dollars. Whenever you do something good, they blow the trumpet and you win one of that dollar. It's in $10, $20, $50, $100. $10 can only make you go to a restaurant to eat. $20 can make you go to a hotel to sleep over the night, one of the most known hotels. $50 can make you go for an adventure where you go and drive a horse or do something. $100 can make you now dine with the general manager, with the head of HR. You will be with them in one top hotel for one night. And you have discussion like formal discussion. You can chat about how is your wife. These things actually help employees to feel included in the organization. They will go back and tell their colleagues that, man, I was with the general manager. You know what? He has a wife. He has this. How did you get to know? Because I was with him for one night. Oh, I want to be with him too. Competition starts. And when competition starts, performance comes, apparently. Not negative competition. So many people believe in reversive psychology, that when you make head of department clash, or when you cause confusion among team heads, then performance is good because they're like supervising themselves. That is reversive. You want to align your organization, you want to align your employees, you want to align your talent together and use a positive way to create healthy competition to be able to drive results. And that's what Jack Welch is saying here. Employee engagement. Again, if you don't employ the employee, there are so many repercussions. And these repercussions is directly affecting the brand identity of the organization. Because for one thing, if an employee leaves your firm, at least 10 people knows about your firm. At least 10 people gets to hear about your firm. Imagine that in a year, take for example, that you have 100 employees in your organization. 100 employees in your organization. And within 6 months, a quarter, 30 people have already left. That means these 30 people have already told 30 times 10, which is already 300 people.
Imagine that these 300 people also, those that they tell, because they too will tell someone. Those two, so if these people, if they have already told someone in this 300, these 300 too are told another 10, then it becomes 3,000. Out of that 3,000, some people who are new, who have nearly known about your organization, they will tell another 10 people. Then it begins to go like that. And that is what Albert Einstein was talking about, this law of, what's it called? Combination. I think combination or so. The law of combination. I'll try to remember it and I'll bring it back to later. So you have to understand how this algorithm works. When your talents leave your organization, everyone knows about your organization, and your brand identity begins to form. Think about this for one time. Have you really heard that Google is constantly hiring, or is it very common that Facebook is just always hiring? You don't see this firm hire every now and then. Why? Because their employee engagement is very, very strong. You want to focus more on employee engagement than payroll, than other things which doesn't even affect the bottom line of the business. This is very, very vital to become a strategic HR. You want to become a business partner, you want to become an operational manager, you want to become an emergency responder, a mentor. People come to you to ask questions, a counselor, a coach at the same time. Remember that there's a difference between a coach and a mentor. I would like to ask you, audience, what would you say is the difference between a coach and a mentor before we move ahead? In your own words, what is the difference between a coach and a mentor? Being a leader. We'll spend about 1 minute on that. What is the difference between a coach and a mentor? Let's have our answers in. What is the difference between a coach and a mentor? If you are in that position, what should you be doing as a coach? And what should you be doing as a mentor? What is the difference between a coach and a mentor? Employees begin to come to you that coach me, or employees begin to say, I want you to be my mentor. Then what is the strategic difference between these two? Let's take 1 minute to spend on that. Any ideas? So thank you very much, Omodolapo Faramon. She says, a coach trains you to bring the best out of you, and the mentor shows and guide you on the way to go. Wonderful, wonderful. That's massive. That's a massive definition there. Thank you, Taiwo Adeoye. Taiwo Adeoye says, the coach and mentor both guide. This is a different approach now. But I believe a coach is more hands-on in the implementation. This is actually very technical. So a coach is more hands-on in the implementation of strategies, while a mentor is more focused on evaluation. Wonderful. This is deep. This is a deep one. This is a deep one. Thank you very much. This is a deep one. Do we have any other definitions in the house? Olani, do you have any definitions? Adedoyin, do you have any definitions? Any more definitions in the house? Okay, let's move ahead. These said or defined terms actually separate a coach from a mentor. They are very well said. But one part that I want to share is that a coach is concerned about results. A coach is concerned about how they will achieve a short-term goal, how I'm going to achieve what I want to get. And so he needs to drive you to get that result. While a mentor doesn't necessarily need to drive you, a mentee even drives the goal in mentorship. A mentor doesn't know what you need. him to mentor on. You need to go to him and say, can you mentor me on this? While a coach doesn't care about what you want to your goal, he wants you to achieve his own goal. So the difference between a coach and a mentor is a coach is a short-term plan, a mentorship is a long-term goal. Two, the mentee drives the goal in mentorship, while the coach drives the goal in the coaching. So when employees begin to come to you in an organization and say, I have problems with my career. I feel like I want to do sales today. Tomorrow, I feel like I want to do marketing. Next tomorrow, I feel like, let me just try IT. Then tomorrow, I think I have many capabilities. I have many strengths, but I can't even understand what I can do most. Can you help me identify this? Then at that point in time, the person doesn't need coaching. The person needs mentorship. Because probably you have gone through that stage. When employees begin to come to you and you guide them properly and you see them growing, at that level, you are not just sitting back in the back office, you are a strategic HR. Why are you a strategic HR? Because they believe so well in your judgment. This is very, very powerful. Let's move ahead. Now, let us talk about disengaged employees. 7 critical concerns. What are the concerns what are the critical factors or concerns that can affect your bottom line where your employees are disengaged? And how can you even identify what are the signs to know that someone is disengaged? Because how will you know the person is even disengaged? And thirdly, what is the impact of disengagement on your bottom line? One of the 7 critical factors as of 2020 is the HEART technique. It says employees no longer hear anything. When they make mistakes, they no longer empathize because they don't even care at the end of the day. They want to leave. They are not engaged. They don't see any vision. They don't see any mission. They are not reminded constantly of their vision, their mission, and their values. When they make mistakes, they don't even apologize for their wrongs. Do whatever you want to do. Anyway, I don't care. When they even make mistakes, they will just tell you, no, they will give excuses. They continue to tell you, no, they need to defend themselves. They become very defensive. They don't even respond to corrections, to feedbacks. If you send them an email, correcting them on something, you will get the response next 3 weeks' time. Sorry, I've been busy doing something. I'm sorry, they are disengaged. And they don't even thank you for the feedbacks. And when that begins to happen, it goes back to what? To your service. If someone is working in the reception and a phone call comes and the employee is disengaged, maybe an employee is playing Scrabble on the phone or playing, let's say, chess on the phone, and is in the critical stage of losing, and a phone call is coming. Naturally, the phone must ring only 3 times. As per CX rule, it mustn't ring more than 3 times. If it rings more than 3 times, you have already disengaged that caller. The person call is already disengaged, tired. So if that person is playing a game and the phone is ringing and he picks the phone down, hello, so he can say, like what now? Because for him, he's just waiting for the right time to leave the organization. That person is disengaged. The HEART technique is the first thing you need to seek in your talent or in your employees to be able to identify if the person is engaged or disengaged. Secondly, is the person aspiring? Some people don't even care about promotion. They just say, they don't even ask, they don't come to you to discuss their IDPs, their individual development plans. They don't have plan. If you give them the form will be on their table for 2 weeks. They don't no longer have confidence in themselves because they have stayed in a role for so long and they believe that they can't even do much better. They don't lack confidence. That employee is already disengaged. The third technique in ACT is they begin to tolerate anything. If you give them one letter, it's up to you. If you don't give them one letter, no problem. If you no problem. Just in their mind is that no worry now. She still see me here. That's why you're doing. When you begin to see those traits, those attributes, you can now understand that this employee or this candidate or this staff is highly disengaged. When your employee turnover rate is beginning to rise, you begin to see that your employee turnover rate is beginning to rise. I believe that we all know how to calculate our turnover rate. There's a difference between turnover rate and retention rate or attrition rate. These are 3 different things. We will take that during the course Hopefully, we take that during the course of this seminar. So the turnover rate begin to rise. And there's another one that is called the churn rate. The churn rate is even very important because the churn rate is the level at which customers come into the organization and they go immediately. In some organizations, there are some customers that when they come to your firm, there is one particular guy that gives them perfect service. They always want to talk to that guy alone. If it's a restaurant, they only want to talk to that guy because that guy gives them the excellent service. Sometimes it might not be in terms of the food that they give them, it might be in the engagement. The guy is engaging that particular person. And so when they come, they ask, oh, where is Taiwo around? When you tell them Taiwo is not around today, they come tomorrow. Is Taiwo around? No. What happened? Where is Taiwo? When you tell them Taiwo has left, I can assure you there are some customers that will no longer come to that firm anymore because sometimes they don't even want to come and eat or to come and drink. They just want to come and find someone to engage with. And that's what churn rate is all about. And if your employee is now disengaged, he might even tell the customer that he's not happy, actually. Customer might say, Taiwo, are you actually happy with what you're doing now? I'm not happy. As a matter of fact, we have seen employees who had said it to customers that I'm not happy. And from there, customers say, do you want to work with me? Yes. And okay, how much time do you need? I need only 1 day, and like that. And this will now affect your churn rate. There is another way to also calculate churn rate, which we might have the time to look into later. Then your customer life value, which is actually depending on the churn rate, is another thing you have to look at. When the employee is highly disengaged, then there's a problem. There's a problem because the user, people that are using your service, they begin to diminish by the day. We've seen what happened to BlackBerry. We've seen what happened to Yahoo. We've seen a lot of things happening around us. Even in our environment, we see some restaurants that are closing up. Why? Because they don't have talent. They have resources, but they don't have talent to drive those desirable outcomes. The last thing I want to talk about is talent war. This is even very, very contemporary. This is very, very inherent right now. The demand for leadership roles is becoming very much. But the roles, the available resources is very, very limited. This is actually called talent war. People who can take on leadership roles are diminishing by the day because of the experience they have in every organization they go to. They begin to change jobs. That's why when you are beginning to review CVs, you begin to see where are the gaps. Why did you stay in this firm for 6 months and you go to another month for 6? Because they're actually looking for a value. Actually, I was having a discussion with a friend recently who is a talent acquisition specialist. I said, if you are analyzing CVs and you find a guy that have jumped within the course of a year, he has actually gone to 3 jobs. Will you take the guy or not? The guy said, no, I will never take that kind of person because the person is not loyal. But I said to the person, I will take that person. Then he said, why would you take someone who has jumped in the job 3 times within 1 year and you still want to take the person? I said, it is very simple. We were all ones. I think empathy has to play a long role in human resources. This person, there's something called self-discovery. The person has not discovered himself, and the person actually doesn't even know what he wants. At that point in time, the person is looking for something, and that thing, he has still not found it in those 3 companies. So when you're doing your course of interview, you're not asking, what actually is it that you like to do, that when you do it and you are not paid for, you still feel happy? Then that is the problem of that person. Then if you now tell the person, there's something called EVP, when you begin to develop your employee evaluation plan, proposition, you now say, as part of your EVP, you now put that as part of your benefits, we are also giving you this, by the way. The person now thinks that, oh, I've been looking for this in the 3 companies I've worked with for the past 1 year, and these people are planning to give it to me. Then you can win that person. You give that person the benefits. And then you will now see if the person will wait or not. But the most important part here is talent war. Currently, P4PE is recruiting for a general manager for a quick service restaurant. We have found more than 200 CVs for this role, but sorry, we have not found competent person for this role. A competent person for this role. Why? Because there are limited, equipped, experienced leaders in the society. And so you, as the leader of your firm, as the HR personnel, you want to begin to have that mindset of developing the people. And that is where talent development comes in, research and development comes in. You have left the stage of talent acquisition now. I would like to ask a question. What is more important in the HR process when it comes to time management or talent acquisition? Is it talent acquisition or talent development? To you, which one is more important? Is it talent acquisition or talent development? Let us see your answers. Let us see your what you think or what you have been incorporating or practicing in your firms. To you, what do you think which is more important at that stage? Is it talent acquisition or talent development? Okay. Okay. Adekunle doing says talent development. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Who else thinks it's talent development? Let us see your answers. Okay, wonderful. Taiwo Adeoye says talent acquisition. Wonderful. Okay, Omodolapo, what I said is, which is more important, talent acquisition or talent development? Which one is more important to you, being the recruitment manager or the director of operations or director of HR, HCM? Which is more important to you? Which one will you take? Which one do you think is very strategic? Is it the talent acquisition or the talent development? You're working in a multinational firm. Talent acquisition, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, that's great. Okay, for the sake of time, I will just go straight to the point. Talent acquisition in a multinational firm or in a SMB firm is even more important than talent development. And why is that? When you employ someone, you employ them based on what? Their knowledge, their skills, and their abilities. If you now employ them, they have the knowledge, they have the skills, and they now have that ability. And there's one fourth thing called compliance, which is to say they have the behavior that role needs, the behavior that the organization has. For example, the organization has a way of doing things. The group has a way of doing things. The group has a way of attending to customers. Let's say you have a general way of sending emails, for example. Someone else will not just come and say, let us describe that template and use another template. The organization has a way of engaging customers. The organization has a way of onboarding. So a lot of things like that. In your policy, you have policy for gifts and all that. And you need someone that can actually align to that. If you now hire someone who has the knowledge and the skills, but doesn't have a transferable skill, doesn't have the abilities, that is when you now begin to say, let us develop this person and begin to prepare him. But what if you have not hired someone that has those transferable skills? That even if the digital marketer doesn't come today, the person can just go and do the digital marketing. Then specialists say you are a talent acquisition expert. You are not just looking at the role at hand, you are looking at the succession of other roles. Talent development comes afterwards when you have now seen that, okay, fine, someone might need to leave this organization in the next 2 years. Who should we begin to develop for that role? Or this guy has actually shown that he has capacity or capabilities to perform this thing. Let us develop the person. But if that person doesn't have that talent or that passion or is not even engaged, because talent acquisition is when you begin to do your induction, your onboarding. And whatever happens there is what the person has in his mind. If the person now becomes disengaged and you want to now do talent development for that person, it takes more resources and more time. So when you are acquiring talent, especially when you are saying it's talent and not people, and when you're not saying human resources, it is key to ensure that you are hiring people who has a competent skills, knowledge, abilities, and behavior that can drive the goals of the organization. But This is actually important for the staff line roles. When it comes to the executive roles, you want to look at talent development. Why? Because in the executive role or the C-level role, you are not using knowledge, skills, and abilities. You are looking at the knowledge, the skills, and the experience. You anticipate that they already have the behavior, but you still want to indoctrinate them. You still will onboard them and teach them on how the organization works, the strategy of the organizational goals, the vision, the mission, and the values. You still want to onboard them. You don't assume that this person has been working for 17 years. He already knows all the possible behaviors that this particular role needs. No, you still onboard them. You still do your induction for them. That way, that person even feels like, okay, I think I'm in a different place entirely. Remember that we said something about how you want to differentiate your products from others. It might be in the form of induction or of onboarding, hiring, and all that. There are some companies that you will rarely see them post jobs. Why? Is it that they don't have roles? Especially a company that has about 5,000 to 10,000 people. Are you telling that they don't have roles? It's simple. Because one, these people have been built, especially when they are already building them for leadership roles. Sometimes they send them to consulting firms to take trainings. Sometimes they do vestibules. Sometimes they do in-basket trainings and all that. And these are actually prepared them for their next role. So again, both answers are correct. Although contemporary talent acquisition experts continue to contend that talent acquisition is key to the bottom line. Why? Because it is directly affecting your retention, one way or the other. It is the aftermath that you begin to think of, okay, let us train the person. Now, let's look at it from this angle. You have actually acquired, 30 staffs during your grand opening. In between that, 2 people left. 1 person was fired, right? And at the end of the quarter, you have 31 people. Here, you want to look at it that, oh, how are you actually acquiring people? 2 people is even good here. Let's say 10 people, 30, you have hired 30 people within the course of a quarter and 10 people have left. You want to give query to the talent acquisition or the recruitment manager that say, my friend, your KPI is, there's trouble. You have hired 10 people within this set of time, and this is what you have been able to achieve. Because this directly is actually affecting your retention and your turnover rate and your churn rate. So talent acquisition is very, very key. Let's run over 7 signs of disengaged employees. 1, when they're beginning to give excuses why their work is late or why their production isn't up to standard of production or up to par, then you also know that this person is engaged. 2, when they begin to take multiple days off in a week in a row, that is a classic indicator that there is a job search. They're already searching for a job under the way. 3, when they begin to become individual players, they don't. They want to be the one. They want to be the star of the firm. They want to be known that I am the one doing this. They want to take the stage that I am the one doing this. When an idea comes up, they want to be the one masterminding it or the master class of that idea. Then you know that this person is actually disengaged. It's only after his own success, not the organizational success anymore. 4, when you begin to see different updates on their LinkedIn profile, you begin to see some kind of funky titles on their LinkedIn profile, you know that, okay, no problems. So now, your digital marketing actually is telling you that I noticed that this guy is actually updating the profile. Then you know that, okay, this person is actually beginning to prepare for leaving our firm. And then you want to start thinking that who should replace the person. Apologies uh, for the disconnection. Actually, um, there was network challenge here, and it's good to be back. So, anyways, these are the ways you can know that the employee is disengaged. So, how does it affect your bottom rate, your retention rate, your churn rate, and all that? But if your employees are engaged, then it helps your retention, it increases productivity, it drives innovation, it improves customer satisfaction. There's something we call satisfaction and loyalty tracking, and that one is called SALT survey. For those that send satisfaction and tracking, so we call it SALT, like this. It's called satisfaction and loyalty tracking. You want to see how your customers are constantly happy with the level of service that you are providing. And that has to do with the reviews on your third-party sites. If you are running a hotel, for example, you want to go to TripAdvisor, you want to go to Booking.com to see what they are writing about your firm. Because this is what other travelers will come to see, to say, oh, this is what they say. Maybe they have lighting issue, they have water issue and all that. It leads to greater profitability and increased performance. According to Gallup data in 2020, employee engagement is on the rise, with 40% of employees engaged as of July 2020, which is very, very, very good, actually. Which is very, very, very good. This is the highest level of employee engagement since Gallup began tracking. If you go online now, you see that many companies are beginning to have employee engagement roles. You see employee engagement specialists. They are beginning to divert their attention towards talent management, especially within the confines of employee engagement. Employee engagement is actually key to a successful talent management. Let's move forward. So now, what are the underlying principles for employee engagement? And what are the three forms of engagement? Cognitive engagement. This is the extent to which your employee focus on their work. Emotional engagement. This is the experience, the work-life balance, how the experience of your employee is like while they are doing their work. And the physical engagement, which is the extent to which employee takes step for his own development. Which physically means if an employee doesn't take any step to aspire for growth, that person is disengaged. Or everyone actually wants to grow. So how can someone not want to grow in your firm? That is actually a classic sign of saying this person is not interested anymore. So how can you improve this? One, share the information. In your briefings every morning, the first thing that has to come into play is your vision. Everyone must recite the vision. It's like a national anthem. Ask them, what is our vision? Ask the next person, what is our mission? What is our value? When they are coming to briefing in the morning, they have the feeling that the MD will ask for what is our mission. And that's how psychologically go into their head that actually am I part of a mission? So when you begin to share information, do you share information about your budget? Do you share information about your financial standpoint? Do you share information about the annual budget, your annual KPIs? Do you share information about your financial standpoint, where you are? When you begin to share this information, there's a sense of belonging that they have, that they feel. Because why should you be giving them information about that at first? But because you want to include them all together, then you begin to share the information about the success or failure of the organization within some specific time. Two, you want to imbibe egalitarianism, whereby it's a classless environment where there is no need for you to begin to look at the general manager as a god. It actually discourages innovation. And when employees cannot express themselves, they are disengaged. You can't even know their capacity. You can't even know their capability. Imagine where the MD or the general manager of a firm is attending a very small training, maybe a training on how to use a tool. And also, the cleaner is also part of that training. It feels like we are one, at least for now. And it feels this part of say we are included, we are actually one, we are equal at a point in time. Another technique is performance reward linkage, which we have spoken about, and knowledge development. Another way to also engage your employees is by giving them constant trainings, get them engaged, give them webinars like this, enroll them for webinars, tell them to go for trainings, give them subscriptions, give them shared service in terms of saying if they want to learn something, you give them 50%, you pay 50%, they pay 50%. These are things that will help your employees to grow and will also help your productivity. This is the employee engagement framework, and this is actually focusing on the retention, and that's why you see all the arrows pointing back to retention. First of all, what is employee engagement? It is how you get your employee recruited. The engagement starts from how you recruit your staffs. What do I mean? There's something called time in process. There's something called time to fill. Your metrics for recruitment are actually to be checked. How much times are recruiters or candidates spending your recruitment stage? How many people are actually dropping off your job placement? They started, but they drop off. You want to know why. Is it the case that they are taking the job the advert is taking them too many processes, it's taking too many long processes. They have to paste the CV, then they also have to go fill in form, then they also have to go, and they are dropping out. Is actually discouraging talent from coming to organization. You want to check in the time in process also, which is to say, how much money are you spending on LinkedIn to promote your jobs? How much are you engaging your candidates? This is the first stage in recruitment. Are you giving feedbacks to potential employees? Are you constantly engaging them to say, we are still shortlisting, we will get back to you? This is the stage, this is the first impression of how you engage your employee. Then secondly, you want to get to the induction and onboarding, which you have spoken about. You want to tell them about your vision, your mission, your compensation, the monetary rewards, the non-monetary rewards. From the onboarding, from the get-to-go, you let them have a clear-cut understanding of how they can grow and how their performance is linked to the strategy of the organization. Another way is through team building and motivation. Team building could mean that you want to have a forum, for example, at the end of the quarter, where all members of the organization have to sit, and it's like a party, but it's not a party, where you begin to discuss about the budget for the year. You share awards. Who is the best, most valuable employee? Who is the best in this department? Who is the best in that department? Who is the best? Begin to give awards. This gives them a sense of belonging and creates competitions amongst your team. Team building could also be that you take them to film shows, you go to the beach, play some games, you invite consultants to come and inspire them. The truth is that motivation, we are human, so motivation will always go down. So at every point in time, strategically, you need to invite spokesmen who can come and inspire them at every point in time. Inspiration could be on their job and off their job. You'll be shocked that if you're actually practicing all these things, your production level will be so high. Development and feedback, which is to say appraisals, your KPIs, review, and all that. Are you giving them constructive feedback and not just giving them on the feedback, also helping them? Are you checking with the line managers to make sure that actually giving feedback to their team and supporting their team? There's something we call management MBWA, management by wandering around. Actually, that is a technique which many top firms use today as part of the engagement tools. MBWA is, well, we will look into that during the course of the session. Then role change. You want to do role plays. We've talked about this. You have job rotation. Let the MD become a receptionist for a day. Let the receptionist become the MD for a day. Let the recruitment manager become the cleaner for one day. Let the security person become the IT for one day. As far as there is a mentor in those roles who they can be with and can guide them. That way, they are learning. They feel like, These people are interested in me. Why of all me, a cleaner is coming to learn about reception? Why of all me, a security is brought to the IT to come and learn about CCTV and all that? And all these things actually it influence your employee engagement, and it goes back to the retention rate. What is your retention rate? It's very easy. Let's do a small analogy of how you calculate your retention rate. Take, for example, like we said earlier on, in January, you recruited 30 candidates or staffs or talents. 2 people left between that time and July. 1 people dropped off, and at the end of July, you notice that you have 31. Your retention rate is now different from your turnover rate. Your retention rate is the number of people that are still present, who started from the beginning, January, and are still present in that organization. Let's say out of this 30 now, 2 people left and 1 people was fired. That means 3. Let's now say we have 27 people who are still in the organization. It will now become 27. The number of those people who remains in the organization with the number of people who started, over 30 times 100. By the time you calculate this is going to be 270 over 3 or so. Then you know your retention rate. But turnover rate is different. It is not the same with number of people that are remaining in the organization. The way you calculate the turnover rate is if 30 people had started the organization and 2 people had left, and 1 person was fired, at the end of the day, you have 31. You want to do it by 3. Those that have actually left the organization divided by the number of those who are by the mid number of people. So that means 30 people started the organization and 31 people you have by the end of July. 30 plus 31 makes 61. Then you want to have the mid average, the average of your employees. We need 61 divided by 2. 61 divided by 2 will give you about 30.5, which is the mid. Then you now want to divide it by the number of people who actually left, which will now become 3 over 30.5, which is your mid number of employees, times 100. This will give you your turnover rate. So each and every part of this puzzle, the recruitment, the induction, the team building, the development and feedback, and the role change, has a lot to do with your turnover rate and your retention rate. The CLV rate, which is the customer life value rate, is something entirely different. You want to look at the number of people who are coming to buy from you and are staying. You want to do satisfaction and loyalty tracking survey. You want to do a lot of surveys, and this, without the employees being engaged and well compensated, you cannot particularly achieve that purpose. Do we have any question up to this stage? Any questions? Let's take questions for about 30 seconds. If anyone has any questions. Or in your organizations, do you have any current challenge that is going on in terms of retention? Or in your organizations, you might want to discuss what are the ways you use to understand that an employee is disengaged, apart from you checking their LinkedIn and seeing that they are already updating their profile. What other means do you use to know that this person is disengaged? Let's do that for about 40 seconds. Do we have any ideas of how to know or how to spot a disengaged employee? Well, in the absence of that, we'll move forward and we'll look at the next thing here, which has to do with strategic talent management. In short, there is talent management and there is strategic talent management. Here, strategic talent management means that you are actually concerned about the activities and processes that involve the systematic and systemic identification of key positions which differently contribute to the organization's sustainable competitive advantage. The development of that talent pool of high potential and high performing equipment to fill this role. So here in talent management, you are concerned about the recruitment, the processes, the method and all that, the hiring methods, the talent development. You are concerned about team building and motivation, induction and onboarding, development and feedback, role change. But in strategic talent management, which is something even more recent, you are actually looking at the succession planning. You are looking at, now that the firm is looking good, now that everything looks good, okay, so we now have a framework for our employees to get engaged through onboarding, through visions, mission statements, through different strategies, and through all different modules. How do we now know those that are fit for the next role? And how do we know those that might leave? Not because they are not engaged, but probably because of certain reasons, maybe political reasons, maybe legal reasons, maybe another reason that's out of the control of the internal business process. You now want to begin to look at that. And one important thing that you have to have in mind is the pivotal roles. What are pivotal roles? The pivotal roles are it highlights the company's specific roles of those that engage with the customers directly. Those that have face-to-face engagement with the customers. Because if an employee gets engaged with a customer and the customer leaves unhappy, at least 10 people knows about it. In fact, there are some customers that will go and put serious review on social medias. And then, and like that, and begin to go and begin to go and begin to go. So that is what Albert Einstein said about compound interest. Compound interest. So it's very important to look at the cleaners in your organization, to look after the securities in your organization. The pivotal roles are the roles that if anything happens to the organization might actually get crippled. CFO, for example, those kind of roles, the chief financial officer, you know that those kind of roles are pivotal roles. Because one, these roles highlight companies, highlight companies often focus on retaining star performance and leadership talent, overlooking pivotal roles. Jobs that have an outsized ability to create or destroy the value customers expect. Like we said, if a customer has been coming to your firm because of one lady in the reception, and tomorrow he finds out that the lady has been fired, or he gets to know that the lady is no longer promoted, or something happened, or if the customer has been coming for 1 year and is still seeing that lady in that role, he might engage that lady and say, what is happening to you in this organization? You want to take care of those roles, because those roles actually is affecting the value and the experience your customer expects or they have. So it's not just the key people, it's not just the CFO, it's not the MD. It is the people who are actually like the cleaners. Imagine that you come to your firm and everywhere is stinking. Who will buy? You have to take care of those roles. Those are pivotal roles. Knowing fully well that we have actually called a triangular way, one moment, a way to actually identify engaged employees. One way is you have it like this, something like this. Here, you have to strategize and come to say, we have engaged employees there. These are engaged. These are disengaged. And here you have passionately disengaged. In fact, we call it highly disengaged. They are highly disengaged. By the time you want to now do your metrics, you want to say in my firm, we are 100. Who are the highly engaged employees? Who are the ones that are key to our organizational functions in terms of the performance, in terms of their behavior, in terms of their branding? Are they promoting your brand? They are actively engaged. If you go to Twitter, they are there. If you go to LinkedIn, they are there. If you want to do something, they are actively engaged. Let's now say they are, let's say 30. These 30 are actually very key to this plan, to your organization. Nothing must, you must watch after those ones very seriously. Then here, you might now have, let's say 50, because they are engaged. Anyway, no problem. So if you have a boss here, and you are the driver here, you are driving towards one place, the 30 people are the ones here. They are driving that, they are pushing that car that we are going forward. We are going anyhow, anyway, whichever way it is. But the people under here, they are these 50, well, let's see how it goes. I mean, we are going to get there, we're going to get there. If we are not going to get there, we're not going to, we shall see at the end of the day. These ones, actually, you also want to take care of them because they have large volume. And at that stage, they are still recoverable. At that stage, you can convert them from engage to actively engage. It's still very easy to convert them through training and development, through compensation and benefits, through rewards, through shared values, shared orientation, shared knowledge, through transparency, through elimination of bureaucracy, through egalitarianism and all that. You can still actually capture their attention and move them to that. But you know, these ones highly disengaged here, highly. Those ones actually, they are the ones that are looking back here. They don't even care. Wherever this is going, we don't care. And those ones, they are the ones that you need to start being extremely careful of. If anything, in fact, they're just looking for any mistake to go. They are seriously and actively and passionately looking for a job. Those ones are the critical ones in your firm. You want to reduce this. And that's why we have actually discussed about the employee engagement frameworks on how to not make them get to that level. But once they get to that level, you no longer want to perform the 3T functions, which is to say you want to train them, or you want to transfer them, or then terminate them. At this point, you might want to be seeing a red alert of saying terminate. However, that is where mentorship comes in and coaching. Then you begin to say, okay, fine, we are already at the preventive stage now. There's no corrective action now. It's a preventive action. How can we repair it? Experts still work their method around and still move them at least 10 out of these 30 to this middle. And we have 60 here. With 60 here and 30 here, the organization is still very fine. So, but however, the most important part is you now want to look at those that are even the leader in driving organization forward. And what if they leave tomorrow? Are we going to go back to the same place where we belong? Or should we start looking for someone who can fit in that role? What actions, what attitude, what behavior, what skills, knowledge, and abilities do we need in that person? What are the training needs identification? What are the training that that person needs to be able to mentor or mirror that person? So there's something we call mirroring in training and development. Mirroring means that 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., the person is sitting with that incumbent person. If he goes to break, they go to break. If they come back, they come back. If whatever he's doing is mirroring that person, that is what we call mirroring in training and development, which is to say, you find that person that has that capability to achieve or to mentor, to sustain or to succeed that person. You already identify the person in your organization, and you begin to have your own specific training for that person. You begin to invite them to some managerial level trainings and managerial level workshops and seminars. So seminars like this, you want to send them to seminars or webinars like this for them to have a taste and understanding of how strategy works. You begin to invite them gradually in bits into your sections where you are brainstorming and when you are having discussion surrounding organizational goals. This is very, very key. Without this set of people, you probably will have serious problem in the long run. Because if the CFO decides to go tomorrow, where do you want to start from? Where do you want to start the reconciliation of your account statement from? Where do you want to understand so many things going in their department from? So at that stage, you are already having indirect conversation with the successor and begin to place that person on some training and development without the person being aware. And without the person even doing it currently being aware, but the person is mirroring that person. There are strategies that you have to actually put in place that will help you to achieve that. But before you can do that, you want to understand who are your high performers. We call them hypo. Who are your medium performance and you are your low performance? The high performance are those that deserve promotions. The medium performance, they deserve promotion, but they need to be trained before they are promoted. While the low performance are either to be trained or to be discarded. We will not be able to go deep into how to calculate all that, but apparently our training and development department in P4PE provides those solutions and how you can actually go about those because of the sake of time. Here, we want to look at something that is also very fundamental to management. We have different kinds of management models, and these are global trends. One, we call it MBO, management by objective. You are managing the staffs and the talents in the organization by defining specific objectives within an organization that the management can convey to organizational members, then deciding how to achieve each objective. We also call it MBP sometimes, management by planning. You want to plan, you want to have a clear-cut understanding of what and what we need to achieve, and you want everyone across the organization to know that this is our annual target for the year. We also talk about MBWA, which is management by wandering around. This system is where you have the managerial levels decide on a day incognito to move around the whole department and engaging the staff that what are your problems? What are you currently doing now? What task are you currently doing right now? At that, you are putting them on spot without their manager being aware. The CEO, the MDs and the executive level decide to wander, they call it wander around. They just scatter around the whole organization and say, okay, what are you doing right now? Okay, how are you doing it? Do you have any problem doing it? You are engaging them. I know you do your KSS in your organization, and we have in-basket exercise. In-basket exercise is where you bring in interns and staffs together, and you put up many files, your memos, your vision statement, your strategies. You pile it on the table, and you leave them alone and tell them to come up with strategies and develop it themselves. So they have to go through each of those books to be able to develop strategies. And by the time you come back, you say, what have you achieved? In that terms, you have an engineer, you have an IT, you have a food and beverage person, you have a finance person, you have each person from each department to brainstorm. These are things or ways to manage people to become a strategic manager. What are the 6 global talent management principles? 1, you have all gone through this. Align the people with your strategy. Make sure that that alignment is consistent. The vision statement every morning. What's our vision? What's our value? What's our mission? Where are we heading to? Where do you want to go to? Do you know it? Thirdly, integrate your culture to your operation. How you make your calls, how many times your phone must ring, how you sell, how your gifts, how employees are to take gifts and how to do they are to refuse gifts. If for example, a client is giving your staff a gift and they say, no, I cannot take it because my firm said that they will fire me if they take it. That has a negative, that's a negative approach. You want to define how they will say it. You want to define each and every one of these things, and then you cannot have time for doing payroll and all these things anymore. How can you have time for that? Because you are focused on how to improve the business. Fourthly, management involvement. You have looked at management by objective, you have looked at management by wandering around, and you want to balance your goals with your local needs. And that has to do with your balance scorecard. You have to look at things from the financial aspect, from the operational aspect, from the internal business process also. Your balance scorecard. And lastly, employer branding through differentiation, which we have actually discussed during the course of this session. Now, our case study is the pandemic as we begin to round up. Donald Saul says something. When the competitive situation changes, and what Donald Saul is saying here is called active inertia. I actually had an oversight by putting that there. What he's saying is active. You might want to do a research more on this later. Inertia. It's like this. He says active inertia is when the situation have changed. Like pandemic now has happened. No more business through this channel. For example, you see that your production level is coming from the warehouse, and you also have a retail, or you also have real estate, but you see that production is now, sales is not coming from the real estate. You want to diversify and digress. But for some firms, when the competitive situation changes, they respond to the future by doing more of what has worked in the past. Then begin to say, no, this is how we have been doing it. Don't just come here and come and tell us bullshit. We have been doing it this way, and it has to be this way, and must continue that way, because in the time past, we have always gotten this result. That has landed BlackBerry into where they are today. That has landed many, many firms into where they are today. And your firm too, analyze your firm, do a gap analysis, present a business case to MD. Are we actually changing with the trend? There's something called trend analysis in marketing. Do the trend analysis. How many staffs are actually leaving your organization? How many are coming in frequently? How many customers are actually staying? What is even the problem? Do you need trainings and all that? When you begin to analyze all this, you now come to say, I think things have changed, things have gone digital, and we are still in the past. But if you say, no, we still do it this way, then there's a problem. And that is why change management supply comes in. Are you actually open to change? Are you actually flexible with your management operational platforms? So to become a strategic human resource or human capital manager, you want to look at all those things. You want to see how you can move from that level of sitting on the chair and engaging the CFO and engaging the, and if you don't know what you are saying, how can you engage the CFO? How can you engage the marketing manager? How can you engage the sales manager about their KPI? Do you even know the KPI of your sales team? These are the things that are very, very important to become a strategic, or to integrate your platforms, your channels, your key functional departments, and say you want to have high-level production. Another thing, which is more or less the last that we'll be looking at, is how can we actually move forward? What is next now that there is pandemic? What is next from here? Are we going by the way of our mainstream beliefs to say this is how we have been doing our thing and there's no need for a review? Or we want to be flexible to people's idea? Are we calling up a brainstorming session where everyone, even the cleaner, is bringing up his idea? You'll be shocked that the cleaner might bring the idea that will change the whole organization. Are you actually beginning to think that way? Think now. How high is your employee turnover rate? Did you know which your employees will leave the organization within 1 year? Can you, as an HR now, during this training, say, I know at least 3 people will leave within 1 year? I am too sure that this and this and this will leave. What percentage of your employee turnover is regretted loss? Does the organization have a vision? Do you even know it? Are your employees aware about the vision? Do they know the vision versus do they even understand the vision? There's an interpretation of vision versus do they believe? You know, there are something called SMART. We are all specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time. Do they feel like it's a smart thing to do? Until you begin to answer these questions, you are not still integrating your talent management. To be able to integrate your talent management, first of all, answer these questions. Then you will now come up with a business case and have a clear-cut distinction of how you want to differentiate yourself from that administrative HR who is doing payroll and from you becoming a strategic HR manager. In conclusion, to be able to move from traditional to strategic role, we will recommend that outsourcing your traditional role becomes more imperative. The time that you are spending doing payrolls, clock in, clock out, sick leave, this one, that one, you can now begin to transcend or transfer those potential and those time to other strategic things. You probably have not been doing that because you don't even know how to go about becoming strategic. But now that you understand how to move your employee from their present situation to the next and using them to have their the best results, there's something we call human capital. Human capital is the totality of the knowledge, skills, and experience of your human resources. If you have 10 human resources, you want to analyze all their skills, their knowledge, their experience, their initiatives, their innovation, their everything. You want to analyze it and say, this is my human capital base. And your talent, you want to audit them. You also want to audit yourself as an HR. You want to audit the vision of the HR. Like we said in the beginning, let the HR department has a vision and a mission. Then at the end of that quarter, you audit it. Are we been able to achieve those vision and those mission? 2, assessing the engagement level of your staff to bridge the gap through assessment is imperative. How much assessment are you doing for your staff when it comes to employee engagement? When it comes to their training needs analysis, when it comes to their training needs identification, how much are you engaging them to know about their IDPs, their individual developmental plans or development plans? Do you think that, because one thing that I have not mentioned is that there's something called organizational goal and individual goals. They too, they want to grow. And so yeah, the company want to make money. They too, I have my career too. So you have to find the link to align their individual goals to the organizational goal. Make them feel that as far as you are achieving their purpose, you are also getting promoted. So you are also developing your career. But before you can do that, you need an assessment. You need to know who is no longer aligning to your culture, who is no longer complying to your culture, who is no longer achieving their aims and their purpose of the organization. And sometimes to be able to avoid bias, because when you do your assessment yourself, they will say, oh, it's because it's the friend of HR. You probably want to invite someone to come and do that assessment. And that is why consultation becomes imperative. Thirdly, without a clear-cut vision and strategy, your organization can never, ever reach its full potential. It can reach some level of potential, but it can never optimize its talent and reach its full potential. And the last part is integrating the functional system of the organization cannot be overemphasized. The sales department have their own strategy, marketing have their strategy, even HR have their own strategy, finance have their strategy, IT have their, you have to now bring it together to say, okay, fine. What the overarching plan is that our organization have a strategy, which is to say we want to acquire this, and this is how we want to get there. We have, I believe, we have looked at that in strategy formation, strategy planning, and strategy implementation. This will come to the end of the webinar, and I hope that we have been able to touch base on the most strategic things that we can do in our organization and how we can move performance and understand growth, development, and how the company can move from being a mainstream company to differentiating itself in the market, and also as we as administrative HR, how we can become a strategic HR. We would love to go into practical aspects as showing how the succession planning, the framework is done, and how the template looks like, and how you can go into that. But because of the course of our time, we can't take this. If you want to go deeper into that, please do not hesitate to consult or contact our learning and development department. Thank you. Do we have any questions at this time? Let us take on our questions and see, or let us brainstorm on what are the recent trends happening in our organization, what are the challenges we have in our organization, or what are the things that we think actually we can even make better and educate ourselves here. What are our questions? I hope by now we are able to understand how strategy influence talent management, and that talent management is even different from strategic talent management. Talent management is actually looking at the whole units and how to integrate them together. And one of the ways you can integrate them together is through softwares, automations, automated services like Page, Oracle, and all that. For those that are using Excel, also you can still automate them together through employee engagement and the principle of inclusion. However, if you want to look at your organization holistically, we have speculated and we have actually stipulated those things that you need to do, managerial roles, managerial techniques you can use in your organization. By the time you begin to implement it in your firm, within the next 2 to 3 months, I can assure you that you will see sporadic changes in the level of engagement and productivity of the employees. Do we have any questions? In the next 2 to 3 minutes, we'll take our questions, our suggestions, and our ideas, what we think, what other things are you actually incorporating in your organization that you think we can also learn from. Okay, so Omodolapo Faromo says, I was really expecting more on succession planning, hence for your role, your reason for enrolling. So for succession planning, thank you very much. Same with Adekunle Adedoyin. For succession planning, the nitty-gritty we need to understand is we have to understand the high performance first. Then secondly, you need to understand those in the mid-level who are actually not performing according to the power that we expect, but those who have those skills that can move to the high performing levels. And that is why we recommend learning and development. And we can now identify how can you identify those who are in that level. How can you identify those who are the high performance? You can first of all do that by your KPIs. And that is why you as an HR, like I said, you need to know the KPI of your sales team, you need to know the KPI of your marketing team, you need to know the KPI of each and every functions. And then you can now see those who are performing. When you now know those who are performing, you can now create a particular framework to say, in this department, these are the ones who are performing, and what and how can we actually fill in those roles when they leave. Then you begin to now look at the ones who are in the middle, who are performing as well. You now begin to construct a framework for them to say, this guy has the potential, the capability to be able to do this. What do we need to do for them? How do we help them to get to this level of performance? Then in that way, you now begin to consult different kinds of the manager, the line managers, you meet the line manager to say, what trainings can we give to this guy in case this guy leaves the department tomorrow? There are some departments where one is like a one-man mopo. The guy is the one selling, the guy is the one doing everything. What if that guy leaves tomorrow? There is always a guy, and that starts from your recruitment. You want to recruit people based on their transferable skills. So those transferable skills, it will help them and aid them to be able to transfer those things that they will learn into practice. However, to be able to have this succession planning, a strategic succession planning, you need to first of all define what will make those succession planning come true. And that comes with planning. That planning is what we have come about in talent acquisition, talent management, in the inception of the training program or of the webinar, to say the first stage is strategy formulation. First of all, define your strategies, strategy planning, strategy formation, which is the process, and then strategy implementation. In the succession planning, different organizations have ways of defining their succession planning. One, you might categorize them as A, B, C. Your high performance might be A. Your middle performance might be categorized as B, while the low performance might be categorized as C. So if you have 10 staffs in your organization, categorize them as A, B, C. The A's are the high performance, and those are the ones you have to watch towards. Those are the ones that you might need to look for a successor to meet. The B performance are those that are performing, but are not meeting the expectation or outcome that the company expects from the organization. In that case, you now begin to say, let us do mirroring, for example. Mirroring is a way to say, look at this guy. I want you to mirror him from beginning to the end for so day. Go to him, see how he does. Go out on field with him. If he's a salesperson, go on field with him and sell with him today. Look at the techniques this guy is using to sell and learn it. Other ways to also go about the succession planning strategically is to also do in-basket trainings. From your in-basket trainings, you let everyone to bring their ideas. You have something on the wall, for example. You ask them questions. Do you have a friend in the organization? Are you happy with the organization? Surveys. You take surveys. When you now get back the surveys, you do an audit. By that audit, you know those who will leave the organization and those who are important. Some people, if you have categorized them and ranked them into A, B, C, and you see someone in C writing something that is bad about the survey, you don't want to really bother yourself so much, because anyway, you know that this guy sooner or later will leave. But for those people who are in the A, you need to categorize like this. You need to categorize them into ABC like this. I will show you an example or a sample. For example, in your Excel or in your automated system, in your HRIS, you want to have a template like this. You want to have the names of the staffs here, where you have the name here, category. You want to have A, B. How do you know this? Through performance management, through performance review, through appraisers. Once you get the appraisers from the line manager and you have a feedback from them and also a feedback from the staffs through TNA and TNI to say, what do you have in the tools to perform through the surveys? In your survey forms, you send survey forms, usually through consulting firms, which is better to assess the feedback of the employees. If you send a survey through the manager, they will be scared to share their feedbacks. But when the consulting firm gives you the feedback, you take it, you analyze it, you audit it, and you now look it and benchmark it against the performance which the line management or line manager has actually submitted to you. And now begin to analyze it. Okay, maybe this guy doesn't have a tool. That's why he has not performed in this role. Okay, maybe this guy doesn't have, he's not free, he's feeling that the manager is too bossy. That's why he's not performing. Then you cannot link it to say, let me link this guy A, performer in our organization. Let me link this guy B, performer in our organization. Let me link this guy C in our organization. At that time, you now put the appraiser here. You benchmark the appraiser to what the line manager has done to their KPIs. Are they meeting their KPIs? And to the culture and the behavior of the organization. By the time you now have the results here, you now look at those that are critical roles. First of all, you look at the pivotal roles, for example. You might have pivotal roles here. You need to define your pivotal roles individually. Every organization have pivotal roles based on the industry which you have. Pivotal role might be your security, be your salesman. Pivotal role might be anything in your organization. Once you already define those pivotal roles, you want to look at them critically to say, okay, fine, I know that this guy is A. What are also the pivotal roles? What if this person leaves? What if the CFO leaves? Who can succeed it? Then you now say, okay, here, since I already know that this guy has said from his survey and he needs training, here you now put TNI. You now put the trainings that they need. All through your IDP, through your their individual developmental form or plan. You now list it under the exam and say, this guy needs this training. When you now give them those training and you administer those trainings to them, you now see who fits best, who can succeed the right person here. You now say, okay, Tade, okay, Shola, for those particular roles. And that is why we are here to discuss how to integrate the role, the talents, and how to bring up a strategic plan to say, these are the success roles we need to forecast for. You are forecasting for the roles. There is no way you should not understand those that will leave your organization if you are strategic. And the only way you can know are the ways we have actually stated. If you are taking too much leaves, if you are giving excuses, if you are not following the hard techniques, if you are not following the act techniques, if you are not actually, if you are disengaged, if they are not aspiring also, if they have loose confidence. Another way you can now go about that is defining your metrics in your automated tools, for example. Your metrics can now be for this role, what is the age requirement you want for this role? 20 to 32 only. So it means that if an organization mission is about speed, then you want to see that if someone is already 45 years old and is working in the reception, what is that person doing? A 45-year-old receptionist, that cannot work. You cannot actually compare this 45-year-old person to a 22-year-old with the speed. Well, you might want to talk of it in terms of experience. You might want to share, you might want to look at it in terms of experience, but in terms of speed, you can't actually compare them. So your mission and your vision will now determine what outcomes you want. Thank you. Taiwo Adeoye, yes, we will get you a template on performance appraisals and templates to your emails. In the beginning, I've actually shared my WhatsApp numbers. I've shared my email. You can get back to me and we will send you how to do about that. Yes, for the tools, we will support you by providing you with tools on how to go about that. But we want you to also have it in your heart and not in the hand. Because for most of us, when we begin to take notes or write things down, we don't even go back to it. But when you have it in your heart, you can practice it when you have the tools. So if you want to have the tools, please, after these meetings, get back to us and we'll provide you with the tools to be able to implement that. Thank you very much. Do we have any other question, please? Or any other suggestion? Omodolapo Faromo, I hope I've been able to answer your question. Do you have something to say? Adekunle Adedoyin, do you have something? Was I able to answer your questions? Do we have any other question as far as this is my WhatsApp number? Yes, absolutely. We will share with you templates so that you can begin to implement this thing in your organization, and your CEOs can begin to look at you as someone very strategic and say, this person is already part of the business. We will support you as much as we can. That's why we are here for you in P4PE. We give you templates. And even outside the confines of this training, we will support you with whatever needs you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joel. I think it is safe to assume that we all had an interesting time. I want to add, in addition to what Mr. Joseph has said, that there will be a 6 sessions, 3 weeks virtual instructor-led training, a VILT course entirely for this particular course, integrated talent management and succession planning framework, would be hosting a virtual instructor-led training. It will be online. It will run for 3 weeks, and it will have 6 sessions. It will hold in April, sorry, and more details will be communicated to us in our emails. Also, we will get the templates and the recording as soon as we are able to extract it from Zoom. Thank you very much for staying through this time. We will correspond with you in your email. Please, if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Like to share with us, we have an upcoming P4PETalks by next week. The title is the Virtual Manager, and details will also be sent to us in our email. Thank you very much for staying true. To have an excellent day.